Hi, welcome to SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Ask SCW is back once again answering your questions in the wrestling community. If you want to ask a question, leave the hashtag AskSCW. You can drop a comment on this video, or you can follow me on Twitter, SCW Wrestling Channel, or you can get involved as well on Instagram or Facebook. So without further ado, we've got plenty of topics to go through this week, including the WWE Hall of Fame, Impact Wrestling, Tessa Blanchard, we've got Tyson Fury and WrestleMania, as well as NXT, as well as much more. So lots of questions to get through this week. Let's start with the first one that comes from Dylan Ketchum, who asks, do you think it's too early that the Bella Twins were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame? Great question to kick things off, and I like the twist with that question. Not should they be in. There's been a lot of debate over this week whether they should even be in the Hall of Fame, but is it too early? Well, my personal point of view on this is that I don't think it is too early, especially as a lot of the modern day wrestlers do seem to go in quite quickly after retiring. You only got to look at Batista. He only retired officially last year and had a match at last year's WrestleMania. In fact, the Bella Twins actually have been longer out of the ring than Batista has. So for me, it makes no odds of what timing that they go in. Sometimes I think it's nicer when it's left longer because you get more of a feel of when you see some of these legends that perhaps like a Gorgeous George or someone that's gone in past and you see this old footage. It looks like, oh, this was a real legend. For someone that's growing up, it's kind of nice to see that feeling. But for us, I mean, right now, I don't think it makes so much difference. And I don't know necessarily who would be more deserving at this point from the women's division that could go in. Other than, I can't really think at this particular point. Perhaps Paige deserves it, but I do think it's perhaps too soon for Paige, just purely because of the fact that, I don't know, perhaps I have some general belief that maybe you see the likes of Daniel Bryan and Edge who've been able to come back from their injuries. Maybe there's a chance one day that Paige will be able to come back. So for me, I think it's a good timing for the Bella Twins. I think they've done a lot for the women's division. I mean, Nikki Bella was a women's champion for over 300 days as well. It can't be ignored. Whatever people think of them, they have improved over the years in the ring. Their in-ring work has been always improving. So I think they're worthy candidates. Like I say, I think they've done a lot for the women's division. And yeah, okay, perhaps they're not as good as the cream of the crop we've got today, like the likes of Sasha Banks, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Asuka, Io Shirai. A lot of the women now have really raised the bar up to an even higher level. But that's not to say that the women before should be ignored. And I think it's a good time for the Bella Twins to be going in the WWE Hall of Fame. Next question comes from DBW Podcast. Should Christian be in a Hall of Fame already? Well, I think one thing we should also announce to the Hall of Fame, and this is no disrespect on Coco Beware, but Coco Beware is in the Hall of Fame. So I think with a lot of names then that are thrown, if they've done something that is perhaps more meaningful than perhaps an opening act of a WWE card, I think they have a shot of being within the Hall of Fame. Someone that's been a great servant to the company. I mean, I don't think you have to necessarily be a great champion. I feel like I'm talking about Coco Beware more than Christian here, but someone that's been a great servant to the company, I understand, goes into the Hall of Fame. Moving on to Christian, I think he already should be in the Hall of Fame, yes. But I think in a way, it's kind of nice, as to go back to the last question, that a little bit of time has been left where someone like Edge went in the year afterwards. It was very immediate. Of course, he was a megastar, one of the top stars in the company at that time. For someone like Christian, yes, he was a top star and was a world champion, but he wasn't a guy that carried the company. And I think that for him, it's going to be more of a reaction from us fans now than what it was back then. So in one way, I kind of like the fact that it's been left till now. I actually think the time is right to pull the trigger for Christian. I think there has to be this year or next year. I think that it's the perfect time to put him in. The guy had a great career, a long-serving career in WWE. What was he, debuted in 97 or 98, become the light heavyweight champion. Went to form on a tag team with Edge and Christian after, originally in the Brood, breaking out and doing their own thing. Singles run. He took a time away from the company, came back, ECW champion, went on to become a world champion. Great feud in 2011 with Randy Orton, some great matches as well. And the catchphrase, one more match. I mean, it was always there for him. I think he's done a lot. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I think it's now or next year. I would put him in. Next question comes from Justin Poxic. I hope I've said that correctly. If Owen Hart ever gets into the Hall of Fame, who would you like to induct him? Well, of course, always a bit of a tricky subject, the Owen Hart one, because, of course, his wife Martha, I think, believe from reading reports, is the reason why he is not already in the Hall of Fame. I think that looking at it, she would be one of two people that I would be kind of thinking that would be right to induct him, because first off, she would sort of then, if she gave permission, it could be on her terms. She can have to say what she would like to say with regards to Owen Hart's career, and I think that it could be done quite tastefully if she was to be the person to induct him. The other person, which I think is an obvious one, would be Bret the Hitman Hart. Great rivalry with them two together. Of course, it's family. 1994 was a fond year for that rivalry with them two alone. It'd be great to hear stories on the road, with Owen Hart as well. And I think perhaps maybe them two together would be an interesting blend, because you could get a bit of Owen Hart, the family man, and as well as, Owen Hart as well, the in-ring competitor, and what he was like on the road. I think that would be quite a nice combination with those two. So actually, to change my answer, I would have Martha and Bret Hart together inducting Owen Hart into the WWE Hall of Fame. Next question comes from Derek Stark. And which legends do you think should already be in the WWE Hall of Fame that aren't already there? Do you think there will be a legitimate WWE Hall of Fame building? There are lots of names that you could easily give to say that should be in the Hall of Fame, but I'm going to pick three for you right now that I think should already be there. The first one would be Vader. I think Vader should be a shoo-in. I'm watching a lot of old WCW on the WWE Network right now, and just to admire the work that Vader did, his rivalries with Sting, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan. I mean, the guy in the ring is just a different level. Someone of his size that could just fly around the ring, do a moonsault, the Vader bomb. He had such a unique look as well. And, was a world champion. Did come to WWE. He took out Yokozuna, I believe, as well, the Vader bomb on Jim Ross. He didn't have as successful tenure in WWE, but certainly was in the championship picture with Shawn Michaels at I believe it was the SummerSlam 1996. So for me, he would be a strong candidate, someone I would love to see in there. Someone of a similar mold, Bam Bam Bigelow. I was a big fan of him growing up. I remember fondly the King of the Ring, 93. Of course, he was the finalist, losing up to the first winner, Bret Hart. Bam Bam was a similar guy to Vader, was a big guy that could fly around, unique look with the tattoos on the head, someone that really would stand out. So for me, Bam Bam would be another one. My third one I'll give to you is the British Bulldog, mainly because of the fact that being an English guy, he was one of the people that I was one of my favourites when I first got into it. The iconic SummerSlam 92 main event, of course, when they sold out Wembley Arena, 80,000 fans. The Bulldog beating Bret Hart for the Intercontinental Championship in that main event was special. He did go on to have runs in WCW, coming back to WWE or WWF at the time. He was involved in the main event program with Shawn Michaels in 95, was part of the Camp Cornette as well. And you go on and see, even to the Attitude Era, he was involved in there as well. So the Bulldog has been involved a lot in history. And of course, with the British Bulldogs as well, I shouldn't even ignore the 80s, really, should I? But I started watching 1992. So for me, I've gone back and watched a lot of that on the network to appreciate the British Bulldogs there and that great tag team. But of course, I've seen him more for his single run. But for me, it was one of my favourites when I first started. And for a bit of nostalgic and a bit of patriotism, I'd like to see the Bulldog involved with the WWE Hall of Fame. And I would like to see his son induct him as well. I know there's actually been a little bit of rumour going around about that at the moment. The other question was a legitimate Hall of Fame building. I would love to see it. I think that would be a great tourist spot for fans. I think that a lot of fans would actually go and see it, particularly if they were in town to go and watch WWE. I mean, if it was a legitimate building, maybe something like they did before when they had like a WWE New York kind of building. I know that was a different scheme back in the Attitude Era, but if they had it in one sort of place and people went to go and say it was in New York, for example, and there was a show in the Barclays Center or somewhere in New York, fans that would go there would probably make the effort to go and see that as well. For fans that are just generally in the area, I think would probably go and check it out as well. So for me, I think it would be a great thing. I have read online many years ago, I believe, that I think that this is something that probably isn't going to happen, but I think it's a good idea. I think that they could make arguably could make money out of doing it. So yeah, I would be in favour of it. I think that if people don't take the Hall of Fame seriously, then I think they would have more reason to if they didn't. I personally do. I quite like the Hall of Fame. I don't say I necessarily watch all of it every year because I don't always have the time, especially there's a lot of wrestling around the WrestleMania weekend. But normally afterwards, I tend to check out what I can. And yeah, I mean, I've always thought it was quite prestigious. So yeah, I think it should be there. That's my opinion anyway. Moving on from the Hall of Fame, and we've got Get Show Wrestling Podcast. I like this question. Does the Tyson Fury win solidify a WrestleMania 36 appearance by him, either in a match or just as a guest appearance? Top question, this one. I really like it. And just quickly touch on the boxing. Tyson Fury, exceptional. It was never in doubt from round 2 there, once Wilder went to the ground. I do think that fight could have been stopped slightly earlier. I understand that perhaps they didn't want a guy to lose his undefeated streak, quite softly in a boxing match. But at the same time, you could see his legs had gone for a good couple of rounds. Fury was dominant, and I think a lot of people that were kind of making fun that he had an appearance in WWE on the build-up towards that fight, I think now are eating their words. It just goes to show that Tyson Fury is one of the pound-for-pound best boxers in the world. Was he one of the best wrestlers when he appeared? No. But then, I mean, I don't think the match was as bad as it perhaps could or would have been. Some other people have come in from outside, from a different world, and they've done a really bad job. I don't think he did as bad as perhaps some of the others, and I think that if he was to try again, another match in WWE, I'm sure it could be better than the last time. The match he wanted was Brock Lesnar at a WrestleMania. I think, obviously, this year it's definitely not going to happen because of the fact that Brock, A, has a match at WrestleMania, and B, obviously Tyson Fury has just come out of a boxing fight. Of course, he should be healed up by that point, but you wouldn't say that he'd be training for a wrestling match straight after a fight. I think that he'll probably have a rest period. So I think that the most likely we'd get is probably some sort of appearance at WrestleMania. And I could see a guest appearance. Maybe he could be in the crowd. Maybe he could be in one of these sort of special boxes that he might be given to watch the show. I mean, another thing he could do is he could actually start a program for something that could be a year or two down the line. I mean, boxing clearly is going to be where he's going to continue going for the time being. I don't see him doing more wrestling matches for the moment, particularly while he's got a world championship, and probably will target another match with Wilder or probably Anthony Joshua, probably in the near future. But there's no reason why we couldn't see a similarity to like WrestleMania 31, where we had The Rock and Ronda Rousey with Triple H and Stephanie. Of course, The Rock wasn't available come time that they could get Rousey into WWE to do that. But then, of course, they cut Angle instead, and they made the match 3 years later. So there's no reason that couldn't happen at WrestleMania. So I wouldn't necessarily rule that out. But I think an appearance, maybe a few words, is probably most likely at this stage. Next question comes from Headlock Talk Podcast. Brock Lesnar has been Vince's go-to guy for a big draw over the last 10 plus years. You can't argue with that. Who do you see as the next big draw going into the next decade? Can be signed currently or with another company / indies? Terrific question, and you can't argue with that. Brock has been, since he returned in 2012, Brock has been the special attraction. He's been someone that has always been the big draw. Defeated the streak, destroyed John Cena, arguably knocked John Cena out of the main event in 2014. And you look at it now and say that who is that next guy? Because we need to look towards it. Who is the next person that is going to be that Brock Lesnar going in for the next 10 years? But they've sort of tried and failed with Seth. Roman has had his time, but I just don't think he's not quite hit the mark for what we're looking for as that draw. I think you've got to look to someone that hasn't done it already. I think they're doing a great job of booking Drew McIntyre right now. I think that if they continue booking in the vein that they're doing, they have got a chance to make a megastar here. And that's what they need to do. They need to make a megastar for this to work. My other candidate, I would say, is someone within WWE who I think has got that it factor, is Keith Lee. We've been talking about him so much since the start of this Q&A over the last few months, of the potential from when he wasn't going on takeovers to now being on takeovers, to being on main roster pay-per-views, to now being a guy who's got the potential to be it. He needs to be fast-tracked, in my opinion. I think that if there's another match with Dijakovic, there needs to be someone he's screwed out of that belt, and Dijakovic can become the North American champion, and we can fast track Keith Lee to the main roster, because he could be the guy on Raw. He could be the guy that could dethrone Brock Lesnar or somebody else, even on SmackDown. I think Keith Lee, he's got the temperament, the attitude, and he's got the in-ring skills. He's got it on so many levels laid out that I think that he could really be a big star in the company. He's an attraction after all as well, because of someone his size to do what he can do, he's going to wow people. And I think that that's kind of what WWE need. If you've got all these, guys that kind of, no disrespects, all about 205 pounds, all can do the flips, all do kind of the same vibe, not so different in the characters. They don't stand out. Keith Lee stands out. He's a megastar in the making. Drew McIntyre as well. He's taller. He's got a different look. He's got something about him as well. They're your two best shouts. But from a main roster perspective, Drew McIntyre's got the potential. If you want my genuine answer, I think who would be the best route to go, I would go with Keith Lee. Next question comes from Mike. As good as NXT is, I think they need to go to different cities at least 2 times a month on Wednesdays. Not a big arena, but around 5,000 seat arenas, but save the big arenas for takeovers. Do you agree with this? Well, they need to do something, because I think NXT, as much as I enjoy NXT and I think that they still are great, it's one of the most exciting brands to watch. On a Wednesday, I do still tend to go to watch NXT first of the 2 shows. I should say Wednesday. Usually it's a Thursday for me. It's a bit late, and if I'm working or whatever, it kind of, I don't really get the opportunity to watch them always on a Wednesday. It's usually a Thursday, but I'll go to NXT first most weeks. But AEW is clearly winning in the ratings war, so it's quite clear to see that AEW is doing something that NXT isn't, and it could be the fact that it's those big arenas, and you arguably got some perhaps of those stars like Jericho, Cody, that are getting the audience to be more attracted to those shows. NXT has become what was meant to be a developmental brand. It's 10 years old now, and it's sort of, you look at it and say, is it the same NXT as what started? Well, clearly not, because first off, we had the NXT that was failing quite badly, and then we got this developmental brand that had literally all the up-and-coming talent, which they've done so amazing with. But now it's not really a developmental anymore. We've got seasoned veterans in there, people who have done their craft for 10, 15 years, who have finally got their break in WWE. Or you can turn around and say that they've had a go in WWE and come back to NXT, i.e. a Finn Balor. And these people now are making this a third brand. It's now been pushed as a third brand. It's taken on and beaten Raw and SmackDown at Survivor Series. It's got a television deal. It's no longer developmental territory anymore. So your point of it saying that it's in front of this Full Sail crowd gives off a different message, that it's this indie promotion, when it's not anymore. It's not an indie promotion. It's something that should be, in these bigger arenas, as you suggest. So I agree with you that yes, they should be looking to take and expand it, because AEW goes to different cities every week, got much more opportunity of making new fan bases, people that might try it out as a one-off. I think I'm going back to that the next time it comes in my town. If you're always in Full Sail, yeah, you are kind of a territory and you're limited, but this is not a territory. It's not developmental. It's a brand. So I do agree with you. They should look to try and branch it out a little bit. I mean, maybe it doesn't have to be twice, maybe once even. I don't know. But it needs to do something, because right now, I mean, ratings might not be the be-all and end-all for WWE with this, but they are losing in them. And it felt for a while that they, with the Survivor Series, that was the idea. And they finally got ahead in December. New Year's kicked, they did a couple of weeks of awards and stuff like this, and now they're trailing again. Now Charlotte Flair's coming to NXT to take on Rhea Ripley. So it feels like they do want to get these rating wins, that it is important that AEW doesn't take over. So yeah, maybe this is the thing they need to do, rather than just keep bringing main roster stars down to NXT. Maybe they should be taking it to other towns, because it gives people an excuse to go, they will come to me. And then, if a new fan checks it out, likes it, then they'll check it out on TV. The only question you've got is, will they sell out the arenas? Because, they do when it comes to takeovers. What happens when it's weekly TV? I don't know. But I imagine they would. So I agree with you. I think they should try it out. Next question comes from Too Sweet Wrestling. Your reaction if the Fiend loses on Thursday at Super ShowDown? Well, yeah, it's not going to be a good one. The thing is with me on this is that I would like the Fiend to remain the Universal Champion, and I do think that that's going to happen. But if they did it, it wouldn't surprise me if Goldberg was the guy that did it, because if they want WrestleMania to be a big draw, Goldberg is a big name from the past. It will bring casual fans in. But the Fiend has been booked so strongly that for him to be, losing his belt to a legend, it doesn't look good on the rest of your roster that a part-timer can come in and just take the championship. So for me, I don't think it's a clever idea. So I wouldn't be best pleased about it. If they want to change up the Mania card and they want to go a different direction, for example, they want to do Goldberg and Roman Reigns, just do the match. Don't have a championship involved. Keep the Fiend as the champion, and the Fiend can take on Cena instead. Because I personally think that would be a better route of matches in the rumour mill what's going around. I prefer this way instead, rather than John Cena versus Elias and the Fiend against Roman Reigns. Because I can just see Elias, I don't think is quite at the level just at the moment. I think they could have a different star taking on John Cena. Keith Lee, for example, would be someone I put in there. But there's people on the main roster that, or arguably the Raw and SmackDown, let's not say taboo with main roster these days, but Raw and SmackDown that could fill that void instead. Yeah. Roman Reigns and the Fiend as well. I just kind of feel if Roman Reigns is going to win, the whole crowd is going to turn on Roman again, and I don't really want to see that. I feel that Roman winning the championship should be a feel-good story, and I don't think the Fiend is the guy he should be taking it from. So that's my opinion on that. So Goldberg versus Reigns, I'm fine with, but not if Goldberg wins the championship. I wouldn't be best pleased if he defeats the Fiend. Tire World Order 2 with my next question. Should Impact have Tessa drop the belt quickly or have a long reign as champion? Great question. Tessa Blanchard, for me, has broken down some barriers. I think she's one of the biggest stars outside of WWE and AEW. I like that they did this storyline with her where she won the championship. I would have done it earlier at Bound for Glory. It all depends with Tessa, what they're going to do. She retained the championship, spoiler alert. I don't know if the championship was actually on the line, but she did win at Sacrifice. She beat Ace Austin, so hopefully that feud is finished. Against someone like Ace Austin is fine. He's a mid-carder anyway. He's not a main eventer, and he's a smaller guy, so I can see some believability in Tessa winning. And this is maybe slightly controversial, but if she used to go against the likes of Michael Elgin, Moose, I don't buy it. I need to believe what I'm seeing on TV. These guys are really big dudes, really tall and big, huge muscles. Yeah, of course, we've seen smaller people beat bigger people before. But even when you look at in the men's roster, for example, let's take a WWE, for example. Would you have believed back in the day Billy Kidman would beat the Big Show? No. Even Rey Mysterio, it doesn't look right when those sort of things happen. So I like to have myself where if someone is a lot bigger, for example, Braun Strowman, that they should be the people going over. And I think when it comes to that, that's where Tessa's reign should end. I don't think it should be a long reign, to be fair. I think that they've achieved the message they wanted to. I think 1 or 2 victories as champion is good. But a championship reign should only be as long as it stays relevant. And I feel personally that so far the championship run has been lackluster. Maybe because of the fact that she's been in this feud with Ace Austin. As much as I love Don Callis, he's thrown the word dream match around a lot recently. The 6-man tag or 6-person tag, I should say, that was on Impact this week with Tessa Blanchard, Trey of the Rascals, and Tommy Dreamer against Ace Austin and Reno Scum. I'm sorry, it's not a dream match. As much as he said it was, it really isn't. So for me, personally, no. I would drop the belt probably at the next pay-per-view. I think that's probably the best time to do it. The April show, Slammiversary at the latest. But, we're starting to see people like Michael Elgin really push themselves up the card. And it feels that it should be one of those people that should take the belt, in my opinion. Another question from Tire World Order 2. Thoughts on Chris Bay signing with Impact Wrestling? I'm super excited, obviously. Yeah, from what I'm aware of, I haven't seen a lot of Chris Bay. So, Chris, if you're watching, I'm sorry, but I'm looking forward to seeing you a lot more in Impact Wrestling. But I've heard he's an exciting talent, someone that has been wanted by AEW and had been on the radar of a lot of companies. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table. This seems to be a big signing from Impact Wrestling, and they've done it before where they've brought in big names under the radar. I mean, Jordan Grace was someone who was expected to go to AEW back in the day, and she stayed with Impact Wrestling. So Impact knows how to get those talents in. I mean, Michael Elgin was another one. We just mentioned him a minute ago. Is someone who is in Impact Wrestling when he was arguably wanted by NXT as well as AEW as well. So Impact Wrestling know how to get stars in, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going to develop. He's got a lot of people who can work around. The X Division right now is thriving with great talent. We mentioned Ace Austin. He's a young guy. He's got a lot to give for the business. We said the Rascals there as well. There's a lot of great matches that we can do here. We've got TJP, Rich Swann, Willie Mack. I can't wait to see what he brings to the table. I'm expecting some big things. So, Chris Bay, looking forward to seeing you in Impact Wrestling. Next question from Hot Mess and Blessed. How can an everyday person get into wrestling? Really good question. One of my favourite questions this week. Looking at it really, I mean, we touched on this sort of stuff earlier, really, but you need that megastar in WWE. I mean, we've not got anyone that was like an Austin or a Rock or even a John Cena at this particular moment. They are the sort of people that then can go off into the mainstream world and bring those casual fans in. Now, because, I mean, the question here says, how can an everyday person get into wrestling? I mean, of course, we have the obvious where I could show someone and say, this is good, watch this. And yeah, then they might like it from that. But for someone that's not got that and to just tune in, what does bring them to the table? Because I don't know what would bring me to the table today, even though there's a lot on offer. I suppose that's a positive. There's so much wrestling out there today in a different market. You can find what suits you. You know, if you want your entertainment and you want the larger than life, you can go to WWE. You know, AEW is providing a different brand. We've got sort of like Impact Wrestling, which is sort of more your 14 plus crowd. You've got your throwback with NWA. We've got Ring of Honor, which is, or the handshakes and technical wrestling. So we've got lots of different markets out there, of what we can go and watch. And it's finding what works for them. But of course, if you go for like an NXT, for example, great takeovers, those shows, if someone takes a punt, I think they'll stick around. So it's finding something that's good. There's good and bad in wrestling in today's world, as probably as there ever has been. It's finding the good, but it's finding a reason to watch it. If you happen to tune in, right now, for example, Edge and Randy Orton, the storyline that's placed together. If you gave Raw a go that night for the first time, when Edge had just come back after the Royal Rumble, you got a great build-up to that storyline, and that storyline could capture you and say, well, I want to see what happens next week. Storylines are so important in wrestling. The storytelling can really captivate a fan. A match can be great, but if you've not got a great story to go with it, a match can only go so far. And when you see those matches week in, week out, and the standard of wrestling right now is so great everywhere, it's very easy to think you're watching the same thing wherever you go. So a great story can really define it. So for me, a great storytelling, a megastar that is out there to expose yourself into the mainstream, go on talk shows and stuff like that. Those are the things that will bring those casual fans in. I mean, of course, if you have a friend that can show you something on the network that was amazing back in the day, all power to it. But it's finding the ways of how to get those fans in. But there's a lot of wrestling out there, so if someone happens to catch it on enough glance, if it's what for them, maybe we might be able to draw them in. Next question, and our last one this week comes from Noob and Co. with a few questions here for us. What's your thoughts on Kairi Sane getting married, and will it affect the Kabuki Warriors going into WrestleMania? Second question, do you think the reason why Asuka is in the Elimination Chamber is because WWE is giving her a push? And number 3, which NXT stars do you want on the main roster, or more on SmackDown, we should say, post-WrestleMania? Well, first off, wrestlers get married all the time, so I don't think it's going to make such a harm here for the Kabuki Warriors. Yes, it's WrestleMania season, so I assume maybe a honeymoon or anything like that may be off the table until after WrestleMania. But maybe she'd go missing for 1 week off TV. Probably wouldn't harm so much. But yeah, I don't think it's going to harm the Kabuki Warriors going into WrestleMania. From the rumours that I've heard, they've got a match set. It's for the Women's Tag Team Championships. So I think they are set in stone. I won't spoil it for anyone that doesn't want to spoil it. But it looks like they've got a match set for Mania. Probably will be on the pre-show, the kickoff. But hey, they've got a match looks like set for there and for those Women's Tag Team Championships. Looking at Asuka, yep, she's been pushed heavily to the moon in the last few months with Becky Lynch, of course. But Yeah, she's probably the most creditable outside of Lynch and Charlotte Flair right now, and that's the reason why she's in that chamber. Not because she's going to win it, but we need to put Shayna Baszler over big and quickly. And Asuka right now is probably the best superstar that can come as a runner-up to Shayna Baszler. So I think that that's probably the angle they're going to go with this to get Shayna Baszler and Becky Lynch pushed highly at WrestleMania. Who better to sort of put Baszler over than the person that Becky Lynch has been putting over for months as the person she couldn't beat? So for me, that makes most logical sense. So yeah, it's exactly why she's in the chamber. Last but not least is the NXT there. I mean, you could argue that the most ones that would be worthy right now would be Rhea Ripley. I mean, obviously she's in a WrestleMania match. Bianca Belair seems to be involved with the storylines, so you could argue that. But Rhea Ripley, is she still NXT champion after WrestleMania? She should continue in NXT for me, but she is someone that, like a Keith Lee, could be fast-tracked to the main roster, really. I'm quite happy to see it. Bianca Belair, I'm not in a rush. Some people are quite upset that she's not become NXT Women's Champion yet. I'm not so much. I think her time will come. She is going at a steady and a good pace. Her time is going to come. And I think she's only 6 months away from becoming an NXT Women's Champion and possibly a dominant champion. I think it's between her and Io Shirai who could take that role. Io is ready for the main roster, but I don't think it's going to happen just yet. She's got a steady place in NXT. I think the one likely one, and I'm going to give my reason why, is Candice LeRae. Now, my reason for this is that I believe that Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano are going to fight, obviously, at the next takeover after what happened last week. And I think that it's going to be, I suggested this on Twitter, that it will be a loser leaves NXT match. So if Johnny Gargano was to lose that, go to the main roster. Oh, we keep saying the main roster, but go to SmackDown. I think will be the best home for, or perhaps Monday Night Raw. We'll have to wait and see. But Gargano could be going to one of those shows as well. So obviously they're a married couple, keeps them the same. Candice LeRae isn't really doing so much in NXT. She just turns up here and there. So for me personally, I think that she would be someone that I think could benefit going to Raw or SmackDown because she's got a lot to give. And yeah, I think she would be quite worthy of a main roster call-up. She's a good in-ring worker. And yeah, if Johnny Gargano was to go there, then I think that it would be a good place to put her as well. But that's all from me. That's all the questions this week. Thank you for everyone that's thrown a question in for Ask SCW. Make sure to follow everyone there that's on Twitter. Let's put that question in. Let's grow the wrestling community together. I like to see us all strong and growing. But like I say, support this channel as well. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please get involved next week. Spread this. Share it with a friend as well. And see if we can help make the channel grow. I really do appreciate everyone's support and everyone that gets involved asking questions. If you're a new person that asks a question this week, or whether you're someone that asks every week, I always appreciate your input. But thank you for watching. I'll see you next time on YouTube. This is SCW, the wrestling channel. Take care. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching the video. A little bit of quick bonus content for you. We've got 2 extra questions after recording the video this week. The first one comes from Pro Wrestling Talk. Do you see Impact and ROH and NWA merge with each other and do a pay-per-view like what NWA and ROH did for a pay-per-view? I can see potentially it might work in the future, particularly for ROH and NWA, but seeing Impact Wrestling involved as well would be an interesting concept, but I suppose it would be something that have to work for all parties. I mean, it could happen. We'll never say never. I mean, companies are open to relationships of working with each other and giving the best for pro wrestling. So I'm not saying that it definitely wouldn't happen, but at this stage of the game, I wouldn't see necessarily Impact Wrestling doing it, but definitely see the other two doing it. But of course, like I say, I'm willing to be proven wrong. Our second question comes from Julius Andrew McNeil and asking what I was wondering of Tessa as champion of Impact Wrestling. I did sort of cover this in the actual video, but I will give it a slight more depth of what I think of as a champion rather than her longevity as champion. As I said before, I do feel at the moment it's been a little bit lackluster, but I don't blame this on Tessa. I blame it actually on the booking. I kind of feel that the feud with Ace Austin was a little bit sort of dry, really, for my taste. I would have rather had a different challenger. They're both champions, and I understand the champion versus champion concept. I would have preferred, though, that Tessa had a groundbreaking first opponent. Sounds a bit crazy, but I would have preferred Taya Valkyrie actually going for that role, as then it would have been 2 females going for the heavyweight championship rather than the knockouts championship. I know we've seen them wrestle many times before, but I just think that would have been groundbreaking and something a bit different. And I think I want to see something a bit more different, as Tessa is the heavyweight champion, not just another champion. I want something to make it stand out. And I think for me, that's what would give me more excitement as her being Impact World Champion. But at the moment, we haven't quite seen that. But now Sacrifice is out of the way. Hopefully, the booking going forward will be a bit better. Impact Wrestling is known for doing good storylines and good writing. It's one of the main reasons I enjoy watching their products, so I do hope that'll be the way going forward. So yeah, so far, I will be honest, I have found it a little bit lackluster, but she's a great talent, one of my favourites at the moment in the whole of the wrestling industry. I think she can definitely make this gimmick work. Do I see it as a long-term thing? No, but I think that, as I said, that comes down to the opponents that she will have in the future, maybe like Michael Elgin, Moose, you know, the bigger sort of superstars. But in the meantime, I do think we can make some groundbreaking, interesting television with her as Impact World Champion. But that's extra bonus questions from me there. Thank you guys for putting in the questions this week. Apologies, I'd already recorded when I had these last couple of questions, but I do appreciate your input and appreciate everyone's input here on SCW. Please subscribe. I'll see you next time here on YouTube. Take care.